No good.
You've been away. You've been out of town too long.
Yes, I guess so. But, you know, the Sabres had it in the bag tonight until the Boston Bruins tied it on a disputed goal. 20 seconds left in regulation. That's how it ended. And the streak continues. No win in the last 8 straight for the Sabres right now. They were wondering when Sean McKenna would break out of a scoring slump, and how he did that tonight. First in the first period around Pete Peters, makes it 1-0. The Bruins caught him and went ahead in the second. Then Gates Orlando up from Rochester to Hamel in front again to McKenna. That made it 2-2, as he just had 2 goals and 2 assists going into tonight's game. And then later in the third period, he would pick up his 3rd of the game. Look at this, and about a 50-footer here that somehow beats Peters, put the Sabres up 3-2. That's how it stayed until 20 seconds were left in regulation time. And look at this jumble in front of the Buffalo net. Mike Milbury would eventually get it in. A lot of guys in the crease there. Looked like some high sticks. Tom Barrasso was plenty frustrated afterward as it went through the 5-minute overtime with no more scoring. Tommy breaking his stick afterwards. 3-3 the tie. Mike DeGeorge reports from the yard.
Wes, another frustrating evening for the Sabres. They came within 20 seconds of getting Scotty Bowman win number 690, but the game-tying goal by the Bruins came on a disputed call.
I think that the ref made the mistake in giving it. I think the linesman saw it and he didn't call it, but what can you do after it's called? The game has to go on.
He didn't call what?
He didn't. Well, first of all, I think there was a high sticking on it, and another thing, I think there was too many men in the crease.
Well, really all I picked up out of it was Middleton was standing right in front of me, and they tried sliding it into him, and I poked away from him, and it just went straight up in the air, and then I guess Mike Milbury just came in and just batted it right out of the air and put it in.
Scotty, your initial thoughts? You said you haven't seen the tape, but your feelings right now about it.
I'll have to watch the tape. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to reconstruct that.
Strengthen up the blue line core. The Sabres acquired defenseman Dave Maloney along with Chris Renaud from the New York Rangers. In exchange, they sent the Rangers winger Steve Patrick and defenseman Jim Weimer. But Maloney is the key here. He's a 10-year veteran known for his toughness and leadership. Scotty Bowman explained his reasons for making that deal.
Well, I think Dave Maloney is an experienced defenseman. He's a 10-year veteran at 28, a former captain of the Rangers, and we were looking for some help, certainly as on the experience side of things, and I think to get a player that's been a pretty steady performer for 10 years would be an asset to our club.
Is this something to shake up the club?
No, not at all. We weren't playing Patrick and Weimer very much. So I felt getting Dave Maloney will give us much more flexibility back at the blue line and up front.
In a related move, Bowman has relieved Jim Schoenfeld of his duties as coach of the Rochester Amerks and reactivated him as a player. Schoenfeld will join the Sabres tomorrow at practice to work himself into playing shape. John Van Boxmer replaces him. Don Luce will be his assistant. It adds up to more mixed emotions for Shoney.
I hate to leave Rochester. I mean, I would love to be able to do both, to continue on as coach and go there and try to contribute as a player in Buffalo. Obviously, that can't be done. So I have to just leave Rochester behind. Today is my last day as coach, and tomorrow is like beginning a brand new thing, and I just have to look at it that way.
Bowman, meanwhile, is still looking for his 690th career victory. Last night, Sean McKenna scored a hat trick, but the Boston Bruins came up with a goal just 20 seconds before the end of the game to earn a 3-all tie. And incidentally, this was Larry Playfair's last game, for the time being at least, as a defenseman. Bowman moved him to left wing, and he practiced at that position today. Tonight we begin
Maloney from the New York Rangers today, and announced that Jim Schoenfeld is going to return to the Sabres as a player. Bowman sent Steve Patrick and Jim Weimer to the Rangers for Maloney and defenseman Chris Renaud, who will go to Rochester. With that sudden rash of injuries, it now includes Gilles Perrin with a fractured knuckle on his right hand. He's going to miss at least a game or 2. Bowman felt getting Dave Maloney and Shawnee would help. Wes Goforth talked to him about it today.
Well, I think, you know, they've both been in the league over 10 years, and they've both been captains of their teams. They've both been, I call impact players, because, you know, they've played the game very hard, and they're intense people. So I think that has to rub off on the rest of your team. We have a lot of young players that I think can use that little bit of extra leadership. And
Bowman plans to move Larry Playfair up to left wing for now. Earlier, we had a chance to talk to Schoenfeld, which we'll hear from in a moment. Now, you don't get a quality defenseman like Dave Maloney for nothing. So he's going to report tomorrow, and in the meantime, the key to that deal certainly was Steve Patrick, the former first-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres. Patrick joins his younger brother James, a defenseman with the Rangers, and this afternoon I had a chance to talk with Steve about this deal. Steve, it was just 2 or 3 weeks ago we were sitting on a bus looking at the skyline of Manhattan, and you thought then you might be living there someday, so I know today's news wasn't a total shock.
No, it wasn't. That skyline looked pretty nice then, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not... I knew that I had a feeling there'd be a trade, and I also had the feeling that it wouldn't be just one player going, and since I figured that, I knew that I'd be one of the guys gone, and I'm not surprised at all. I think it's probably the best thing for my career to, to get out of Buffalo. Career-wise, I really love the city a lot and the people. I also had some really good friends on the team, so I'm not really leaving here with any hard feelings.
Now, earlier today in Rochester, Schoenfeld talked about the move from coaching back to playing.
And, we had something really good, something special. I think we had a great relationship with the players, and I'll greatly miss that. And that's why this whole thing is difficult. Outside of that, I think it'll be fine once I get to Buffalo and start playing, but today it's not so easy, no.
And John Van Boxmeer will take over the coaching duties in Rochester for Shawnee, who's done a tremendous job as a coach there. Now, last night, the Sabres and the Boston Bruins battled with 3-3 ties. Sean McKenna really broke out of a slump. Here, he scores in the third period to tie the game at 2 off a Hamel shot, the rebound there. McKenna went into last night's game with 2 goals and 2 assists, but scores his 3rd of the night here, beating Peters with a 50-footer from the point. His first NHL hat trick. It looked like the Sabres would hold on, but just 20 seconds from the horn. Mike Milbury scores, and on the...
Gone are defenseman Jim Weimer, a 4th-round draft choice in the 1980 draft, and winger Steve Patrick, a #1 pick a year later. Patrick joins his brother, Jim, on the Ranger roster. Now, in exchange, the Rangers gave up defenseman Dave Maloney and minor leaguer Chris Renaud, who'll join his brother, Mark, in Rochester. Now, Maloney leaves his brother down in New York. He's a 10-year NHL veteran and former captain of the Rangers. He was the subject of trade rumors for some time and had been playing less and less lately. Maloney was shaken by the move, but told me tonight he was glad he was coming to Buffalo and not going somewhere else.
The thing is, Rick, I could be in a lot worse situation for sure. I feel that I'm going to a team that's a legitimate contender. They have a lot of good people, and I can remember playing against teams. There were a lot of teams that I hated to play against, but I would really like to play for. And really, I was pretty deeply rooted in New York. But I'm really looking forward to coming to Buffalo, and God, I hope I can just contribute and get things going.
In another move today, Scott Bowman reactivated Jim Schoenfeld. John Van Boxmeer takes over as coach of the Amerks. Don Luce will be his assistant. Schoenfeld revealed that the move really wasn't a surprise for him, although he didn't actually expect it to happen. But Bowman had shown him ready just in case.
He asked if I would just stay in shape, reasonable condition, if they ran into a rash of injuries on the defense, and I could maybe go up and help out a little bit. So I told him I would. He feels now that his team is struggling, and he feels that I can help them on the blue line and in the dressing room.
Other happenings with the Sabres today, Real Cloutier was sent to the Amerks. Larry Playfair is being moved from defense to left wing, replacing Lindy Ruff, who will be out for a couple of months. And Gilles Perreault is out indefinitely. He has a fracture in his hand.
Well, Scotty Bowman, of course, as you know, his team is struggling and riddled with injuries, so he's got to do something. So he acquired Rangers defenseman Dave Maloney today, and then threw in an even bigger shocker, announcing that Jim Schoenfeld's going to give up that coaching job in Rochester to rejoin the Sabres as a player. John Van Boxmeer takes over Shawnee's coaching duties in Rochester. To get Maloney and defenseman Chris Renaud, who will be assigned to Rochester, Sabres sent Steve Patrick and Jim Weimer to the Rangers. Bowman explained to Wes Schoenfeld why he felt the need to get Maloney and Schoenfeld now.
Mike Ramsey has been playing hurt. We've leaned on he and Billy Height quite a bit lately, and I think we had to shore up that part of our team with 2 experienced players that have given a lot. I think still have something to give, and you know, just their presence and their experience for what we had to give up should be a big plus.
While Schoenfeld has been getting himself ready to play the past couple weeks, he admits it's tough leaving the Amerks after such a terrific beginning.
We had something really good, something special. I think we had a great relationship with the players, and I'll greatly miss that. And that's why this whole thing is difficult. Outside of that, I think it'll be fine once I get to Buffalo and start playing. But today it's not so easy. No.
Patrick, a former first-round draft pick of the Sabres, talked to me about the possibility of being traded to New York a couple weeks ago. Steve, it was just 2 or 3 weeks ago we were sitting on a bus looking at the skyline of Manhattan, and you thought then you might be living there someday, so I know today
he made his move. But the big story here is not the trade. In another roster move, the Sabres have reactivated Jim Schoenfeld, who will be back in a Sabres uniform for the first time in 2 years. While Bowman and the Sabres were breaking the news in Buffalo, Jim Schoenfeld was giving his reaction in Rochester.
They have a very talented group of players there, and there's something missing. It's more an intangible. You know, it's not a player or something that a trade would resolve so much. He feels it's an intangible, and he thinks that I may be able to provide that.
The addition of Schoenfeld and Maloney will relieve the defensive pressures put on Bill Hite and Mike Ramsey, and as Schoenfeld said, add the intangible. Before today's trade, Jim Weimer had scored 5 goals in 10 games since coming up from Rochester, but Maloney is a go-getter, an experienced player who can also add that needed spark. Right winger Steve Patrick, a former #1 draft pick, lost in the numbers game. The Sabres are top-heavy at his position, and he's really never panned out. In short, Bowman was willing to give up a piece of the future for a piece of the present.
Both Schoenfeld and Maloney have given a lot to the game, a lot to the league. They haven't grabbed that brass rung yet, and that's still in the back of their mind. And I think sometimes when you get an experienced player, they can do a lot more even than people think. They just seem to get that little bit extra, and I think we're close enough.
The principal figure in the 4-player deal Buffalo swung with the New York Rangers worked out with his new team. Maloney told Rob Allen he'd be checked out his clubs and he might be traded, and the Sabres were at the top of his list.
The Ranger franchise for 11 years, and we had some good years and we had some bad years, and I'd always prided myself in being a winner. And you get towards the end of your career, you kind of like to get the opportunity, if you're going to move on, to move to a franchise that looks like they got a shot. And I legitimately saw the Buffalo Sabres have a shot, and I'm just glad. I could certainly be in a lot worse organizations, and that's not to say whatever it means. I'm just really happy to be here.
The familiar face, of course, belongs to former captain Jimmy Schoenfeld. Shoney says he's not in game shape, not just yet anyway.
I'm just keeping the agony in my body inside after that practice. It feels okay. I'm a little slow and out of shape right now, but keep working. I'm sure it'll come around in a few days.
I know you said it feels a little strange in that there's hardly anybody here that you used to play with, some of the guys you coached.
Yeah, they get a chance to get even now, so I don't know if that's good or bad.
The Sabres seemed excited about having the new players at practice today. Buffalo departed for Boston late this afternoon, where they'll play the Bruins tomorrow.
Different lineup. The 2 new additions to the roster were at Saberland today. Scotty Bowman turned out to be stick boy for defenseman Dave Maloney as he arrived a little bit late, just in time for practice. Now, the longtime New York Ranger talked to Glenn Walker about his role on the Sabres, joining the team in the midst of a slump.
I really don't know. There seems to be a decent enough group of guys here, and for me to come in and expect to do anything that's going to set the world on fire would be a little asinine, because they've had ups and downs themselves. So particularly now, I'd like to prove myself on the ice, that I can contribute on the ice, and then just lend whatever leadership qualities into the locker room, whatever, and just fit in and be comfortable.
Kind of got the impression that you really would rather remain coaching over in Rochester.
Well, I was enjoying it. I really liked it. I had a real good crew, a good group of players and everything. And but they felt that I could help here. And when you're an organization, you go where you're asked to go, and you hope wherever you are, you can do a good job for them.
And situation last spring there, and there was a time where I really felt that maybe my career was finished. But I felt this year I played well, and for whatever reasons I wasn't playing, and this change hopefully is going to be good for me. I think I can still play, and with a good club, and that's the whole deal. I'm worth 20 or 25 other people here that want to try and contribute, and where I fit in, time will tell, but I'm just happy to get the chance.